To be fair, I would still prefer to have a business that has 80% gross margins. But with services, for human services, I have that as my rule of thumb, is that I always want 80% or higher gross margins. Okay, that brings us to rule numero nueve. Is this all about just raising price, the whole thing? No, my God, gingerbread. We talked about a lot of different things. Talked about the calling leads a little faster. It was rule number 5, which you missed. Back to rule number 9, sales funnel benchmarks. Okay, so let me think about the best way to explain this. Being able to analyze the business to figure out where the hole in the process is. I'm going to skip this one and come back to it because I think it's too many numbers for everyone. Okay, so I'll do a different one. Rule number 10, which is functionally rule number 9, but we're calling it 10 because I skipped number 9. Let's just go with it, which is churn and retention. So I want to only have to acquire customers once. The reason that most businesses cannot get big is because they are always filling a leaky bucket. Now, you've heard this terminology before, but think about how difficult it is to acquire a customer. It's a lot of work, right? And to go through that entire process only to lose them, to have to go get another one, is exhausting. And so you want to be, and this is John Paul DiGiorio, is the quote from him. He said, you don't want to be in the sales business, you want to be in the reselling business. And so what he meant by that is, how do we get customers to just buy again and again and again? Which does come down to product primarily and then brand secondarily. And so the idea here is that for your business to be A, significantly more valuable, but B, way more fun to run, you want to keep the customers you have. And so when you're a small business owner, you're typically just barely figuring out what's going on. And so what happens is people will typically try to scale too fast before they've actually figured out revenue retention and churn. And so what are, quote, good benchmarks? Well, good benchmarks for anything B2B is you probably want to be above 80% in terms of retention annually. So that means that if I get 100 customers Jan 1, right? So this is January 1, let's say 2025. Jan 1, 2026, I want to make sure that I have at least 80 of these customers. Now, this is where people get confused. Let's say that they grow because they get better at marketing and sales throughout the year, and they come January 26, and let's say they're at 160 customers, is how many they have. They think, oh, well, I definitely retained all 100 customers, and I also got 60 more. We're looking at, of the original 100, how many of them made it to here? This is the issue. Now, you can take whatever your annual retention is, and then you can basically reverse engineer into what your lifetime value of a customer is. So if you have 50% annual retention, then you can take whatever someone pays over a year, let's use simple math and say someone pays $100 per year. If you have 50% annual retention, then it means that you can basically double it. So you divide it by 50%, equals $200 is what you're going to make from a customer. Now here's where this gets really wild. Let's say that you have 80% annual retention. Doesn't seem like that much different, right? It's only 30%. What is it actually different from a math perspective? It means that you're going to get functionally 4 turns, 5 turns, 5 turns. Because every year you're going to lose 20%, right? And so simple math on that is around, the back of napkin on that, is about $500. What? ¿Cómo se dice? A lot. Mucho dinero. All right? And so think about 2 businesses, and this is why this is so important. The cost of getting customers between different businesses is typically very commoditized. So CAC in an industry is a commodity. Think about how weird that is as a sentence. If there's 2 social media marketing agencies that both sell generically similar services, now of course, we don't want to do that, but this is how the industry by and large works. If you have 2 different businesses that are selling the same, relatively the same thing, the cost of getting customers there is typically about the same. Here is where one business can become 5, 10, 100 times more valuable, is that those customers are worth 5, 10, 100 times more to the other business. And so they are able to play a huge arbitrage game so they can spend way more money in the acquisition than the business that only has, call it 50% retention, right? This guy's getting 2.5 times more per customer than the first company, even though maybe the cost of getting the customer in both these scenarios might be the same. This is where there's a huge amount of alpha or kind of arbitrage above what market could get in terms of improving a business. And so right now, if you don't know how many customers stay with you year over year, definitely worth figuring out. And so that is my rule of thumb, is that I target. And so for each of these numbers as I'm sharing them is like, This is my target. This is what I want to get to. And if I don't have that, I see this as a huge problem in the business and I have to go fix it. Otherwise, I just know that I'm going to scale problems, right? When you scale problems, they just get meaner and uglier and they have more faces on them, right? You do not want to do that. And this is where most people's ego gets tied up in it, which is why most entrepreneurs can't scale. All right. So rule number 11, or rule number 10 for those of you who are following along. What is a good rule of thumb for how many people prepay? So a lot of you guys, some of you guys follow my stuff. I'm obviously a big fan of pulling cash forward because of all the reasons I already mentioned. One is if someone prepays for a year, no one can churn if you prepay, right? You already paid for the year. Can't really churn out, right? What other benefits happen when you prepay? Well, if you prepay, you get all that cash today. If you get all that cash today, what can you do with that cash? Go get more customers, right? Think about this. Everybody here should at least give a 10% discount for getting paid in full today. Why? Because the value of money today is typically at least that same value of that money in a year will be worth 10% more. At minimum, you could take the money, put it in the darn stock market, right? And then wait a year and it would be worth 10% more. All right? And so like at minimum, that is the amount that I'm willing to give to pull cash forward. All right? Now, what percentages, rule of thumb, should you expect? So let me give you a couple. So if